Hello, everybody. Welcome to Hank's List Corner, where we talk about relevant lists in the 40K tournament scene and the meta that is currently tearing everyone up. Today, we are going to be talking about Thousand Suns, which is that chaos book full of the sorceress Chaos Space Marines that never seem to die. And no one really is ever crazy surprised when, at least in the current meta, when Thousand Suns do well, just because they're such a flexible army. They're active in all three phases, and they have just a lot of firepower, a lot of durability, and a lot of mobility. And because of that, high-skilled players can get more out of them than meets the eye. They're not unlike Transformers in that respect. So today we have brought Zak Nelson, a GT winner, multiple GT winner, and has done pretty well with Thousand Suns, and he has been a terror of the local Pacific Northwest meta with Thousand Suns, and we're going to talk about his efforts to try and make the list work. Zak, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. Yourself?
I am all right. I am all right. Like I said, school has started back this week, so I am basically half dead, but I am here to help everyone with the 40K news of the day. So, Thousand Suns. We're going to go ahead and talk about some of the various list archetypes. There's 2 or 3 out there. We're not going to talk about any specific list because a lot of the lists kind of sort of mostly do the same thing and they're built around the same building blocks. So we're going to talk a little bit about those list variations today. So let's go ahead and look at our list of questions right now. So our first question is just simply, what is the list? And because we don't have a specific list that we're looking at today, just go ahead and, Zak, take us through what, like, the core of a Thousand Suns list is, and, like, what are the 2 variations that make them different from that core?
Sure. So Thousand Suns lists nowadays are Duplicity. And so Duplicity attachments have a relic for redeploy, and they can use a psychic power to teleport units around the table. Almost every list is going to have 2 squads of 10 Terminators, basically all the time now. In a post-Armor of Contempt world, everything has that. Everything has Armin, because it's a great special character. People have kind of converged on a configuration for the Zinch's Firestorm caster. Has the Athenaeum Scrolls that makes your direct damage a lot better and more reliable when targeted. And that's going to be in every list. And then there's kind of 2 sub-variants. A local hero, Chuck, and I have worked on a variant that uses 3 little baby knights, and that is a shooting profile that is really good where the Terminators are weak. So it shoots at 7/2/3. It's +1 to hit against monsters, vehicles, and characters. The monsters and vehicles being the standout there where you might have problems. And then the other way you could take the list is with rubrics. And with the rubric list, you're going to have 5 or 6 squads of 5 rubrics. And, rubrics have a strat for -1 damage. They have Armor of Contempt. And so if we're talking about the shooting phase with 1 or 2 damage weapons when they're standing in cover, they're going to have a 0 up save, which is going to be really hard to deal with. And that's what you see like with Marshall Peterson's list at LSO. I ran a list like that at the Seattle Open, and previously I won a GT with a list like that with 30 rubric Marines. And that's kind of leveraging their strengths.
That's fair. Okay, that's a pretty good rundown. So we've got a suite of hyper killy caster characters. We have 2 units of 10-man Terminators, and the Terminators, all their guns are at least AP -2, so they're at least in an Armor of Contempt world, taking people off of their 3+ or 2+ save. They have like the Soul Reaper cannons and the Warp Fire missile racks, so they have a very hellish amount of firepower, and the amount of buffs that you can stack on them, plus their mobility, being able to teleport all over the place, is very, very impressive. And then it sounds like you have a choice between either like a minimum amount of rubrics, and rubrics are just like very durable, and because they have access to basically old school unrestricted warp time, they are surprisingly mobile, along with most of the rest of the list, considering the teleports you can throw out there. Or it sounds like you can run a smaller amount of those, and then 3 Helvrins for the long-range firepower, or you can just say screw long-range firepower and just drown people in impossible-to-kill Marine bodies. So that is a very potent combination, and we're going to go ahead now and move on to our next question, which is, and this is where if one of our questions is going to go over time, I have to imagine this is going to be the question. Hey, Zach, what is this list's plan?
Yeah, that's this one could go long. So there are the list can do two things really well, and when we talk about rubrics versus little knights, we're really talking about which one of the list strengths do you want to focus on, or the army strengths. So the fact that it has teleporting terminators means any version of this list can work angles really well. The terminators are strong enough that as long as you keep them at like their max 30-inch range and you put buffs on them, you can put them in cover in most places, and most people won't be able to kill them. They're going to be hard to deal with. And because they can teleport, if you're on, like, say, a table quarters deployment, they have a lot of choices which angles to push, and they can really kind of go in somewhere and cripple key units you need to kill to make a game work. So that's one real strength, is basically mobility. And when you see people bring knights, you're doubling down on that, because the knights move 12 inches, they shoot the table, so you can just work crazy angles and kind of shoot whatever you want. And you're really going, I'm a shooting army you can't tie down, and I'm gonna shoot you if you try and hide.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one plan, and that still comes with the standard Thousand Suns thing. Like, we have a good psychic secondary that is doing action on an objective for 3 points.
Mm-hmm.
We have Wrath of Magnus, which has been changed. It basically means if your opponent brings a psyker, you get 12 to 15 points, which is great. And so you can shoot and do all of that, and it's fine. The other way to take it is to run rubrics, and rubrics are really good at trading, right? Like, for 105 points, they're very hard to kill. So your opponent is going to have a hard time efficiently trading into the second or third squad of rubrics. So, like, everybody can do with one, but like when you get to second, third, fourth unit, you can really run people out of good things to trade it with you with, and then they're putting something that's 250 points in your squad of rubrics. You kill it with your terminators and profit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one archetype really tries to get angles and shoot. The other archetype really tries to play the mission well. And like you mentioned, like rubrics, they move 6, they warp time to 12, 3 inches if they have a transport. If they don't, either way, it's 12, 15 inches, and then charge. So you can just charge them onto an objective. They're good enough in combat, they'll kill one model, and they'll win 5 to 4. So you can use them to spar. They're a really great skirmisher.
Mm-hmm. All right. So yeah, that is a pretty terrifying plan. Now, one of the things that I'd like to touch on a little bit is, because they're active in all 3 phases and they have Grey Knight levels of teleporting mobility, actually more than Grey Knight levels of teleporting mobility. Grey Knights can teleport, they can teleport 2 units a turn. You can teleport 2 units and then also warp time a thing. So yeah, like being able to work the angles, being able to stand in the perfect spot as long as the enemy hasn't gotten there yet, plus your ridiculous mortal wound output. So we're going to get to this a little bit more when we get to the question about like combos and things that the list can pull off. The mortal wound output of this list makes Grey Knights blush. It is borderline absurd. And I have seen Zach, I have seen multiple other players just make completely outrageous come from behind plays because this list can just basically be like, where on the table needs to have 17 mortal wounds slapped on it. And wherever that spot is, Thousand Suns are going to be able to put something there and channel all of their Cabal points into just making all of those mortal wounds happen. And because of that, even if this plan goes awry, they've probably got something else up their sleeve and some kind of play that they make. And that's one of the reasons why I always respect a Thousand Suns player that knows what they're doing, because they'll be able to spot some weakness in what I am doing, and that is a problem that they're going to be able to make for me. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to our question number 3. Hey, Zach, do any specific missions noticeably modify this plan?
So the first thing to note is that so the 2 versions of Thousand Suns are very different in this. If you play all the rubrics version, you're going to be substantially stronger on hold 2, hold 3s. Because you have a million units of bullshit. They're hard to kill, and they'll trade up into anything. Usually you can make 3 or 4 of the squads have flamers, which is great. So if we're going to be really spread out, that really shines. The version that wants to work angles and shoot actually does worse on Dawn of War, because the board is really narrow and it's easier to control the angles. If you get table quarters or like the old Vanguard deployment where diagonal lines against an army that can teleport, you can work crazy angles. It's much harder on Dawn of War. Your opponent has an easier time. So depending on how you're set up will depend on on which kind of plan you go for.
Okay, that's an interesting nuance. The different types of the list give you wildly different options depending on the mission deployment types, and that is definitely noteworthy. So if you're on table quarters and you see friggin' Baby Knights, it's probably not going to be all right. But Dawn of War, Baby Knights, not going to be so hot. So there you go. All right. Let's go ahead and just keep on trucking. All right. What are the standout units / combos? Go ahead and break down, like, I don't know, what are the top 3 scariest combo things that you can pull off with this list?
Sure, yeah. So there's like 3 main things, and I'll put like 1 or 2 little maybes behind it. So the first thing is obviously Terminators that teleport. That seems pretty obvious, but you have 32 bolter shots at 4-2-1 or 5-2-1, 10 shots at 7-3-1, and then 4 shots at 8-2-D3. That's the exact profile. That will teleport wherever and shoot anything you let it shoot. If you like, yeah, go ahead.
It can potentially also have Veterans of the Long War.
Yes, also +1 to wound. Yeah. So like I played a sister's opponent over last weekend, and it was table quarters, and the terrain was not friendly for working angles. I jumped some teleporters and got to fire at 3 units of Repentia at the same time. Kind of worst case scenario, but that's one thing to look out for with teleporting Terminators. Brad Townsend in his list has one thing that's really important you want to look for on someone's list. He has a no Force Org slot sorcerer that has Aether Stride and Loyal Thrall. Loyal Thrall lets a caster do a psychic action as if it was a normal cast. This person will also have Temporal Surge, which is Thousand Suns version of Warp Time. And the Aether Stride roller trait makes them move 9 inches instead of 6. So they can move advance into the middle of the table, do Warp Ritual, and then without paying any CP, Warp Time themselves backwards. Or if you want to go really crazy, they can move advance, Warp Time themselves to move again, do the thing, and then cast again and teleport themselves out if they really had to.
That, as an Eldar player, is some Eldar quicken jet bike shenanigans right there. Yeah. And the fact that you can do that while being in power armor with Armor of Contempt is mildly terrifying.
Yeah, exactly. So that's like nothing to really look out for. There are some other things that are less common I have liked in the past. I use less now. You can make a sorcerer that moves like 30-something inches in missile charge. I call him the missile sorcerer, or the sorcerer. He is real good at going to kill stuff. So look out for that. Like if you roll up something, you see a sorcerer with Thirdagyre, which is the disc, and Aether Stride, which is the move more warlord trait, that person's going to go forever in charge. So if you have characters that are relevant to your army, you need to keep them perfectly bubble wrapped. Otherwise, they will die.
So just curious, what is that guy's profile in combat?
Oh yeah, so when it's all said and done, he will have 7 attacks at strength 7, 83, 2 damage. And he can also like do flat 3 plus D3 mortals before he charges you. So right, 3 to 5 mortals, and then take 7 attacks at 7, 3, 2. He'll clear a squad of troops off an objective. He'll do whatever. Just know that he's going to go wherever he wants, do whatever he wants, and good luck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 7 attacks at 7, 3, 2 is like, it's not nothing, but it's not like top tier scary, especially when there's a lot of -1 damage running around in the meta right now. But being able to slap it for 3 plus D3 mortals before he goes in just adds a whole extra level of threat on top of that. Is that guy a missile and then dies after he goes in, or is he capable of pulling some kind of shenanigans that then allows him to extract himself like he's a Harlequin character or something?
Yeah, he moves 6 inches any direction after he fights. He's consolidating you anyway after he fights. So he won't get killed on the slap back that phase, but coming into your next turn, he's still a T4 body with 5 or 6 wounds that's going to go poof.
Sure. Okay. Assuming you can grab line of sight on him or anything. So he has a little bit of a trick if you can get him out on a flank and hit something isolated and then back off behind a ruin or something.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
Yeah. Okay. That's having that nice little treat and twist there at the end is adding insult to injury.
Always when you consolidate him behind the wall and your opponent's like, God damn it. Now I can go take him out.
Exactly. Now I have to do a thing. Okay. So actually, I think we covered a decent amount of information, and I think we're going to go ahead and call this the end of part 1. If you want to join us for the advanced shenanigans in part 2, go ahead and tune in to the other part of the channel.